Hello, this is Robert Messina, and I'm going to call this Wisdom Wants to Know When Revisited. Not too long ago, put out Wisdom Wants to Know When, and I did some calculations. I made a lot of comments and stuff, and I'm going to leave a link for you guys to go to that, because this is going to be much shorter, and I have a lot more information that was in that one. But the information, there was one major calculation mistake I made in that one, and that was the whole crutch of the video, is to try to pinpoint the day that the first seal is going to be opened, and the covenant, when the covenant is confirmed, that is going to be the beginning of the last 7 years. All right? And wisdom wants to know when that is. Wisdom of our work for heaven needs to know that, and the wisdom for our work that we get hungry when you do it again. The wisdom when you get hungry. Again, you still get hungry when you eat. The work that we do for the kingdom of God, we do that work and we don't get hungry. All right? So there's two different wisdoms, and we need both of them. Wisdom wants to know when in both cases. Once the tribulation gates open, you just have to survive. You just have to pray and, try to make it, try to hold on. And whatever you do, don't deny his name. You're an ambassador for him, and you never want to deny who you know. The way Peter did it, so people do it. I mean, that's what Peter did. He said, I'll never deny you. And he denied him 3 times, as Jesus knew. But after he was baptized in the Holy Spirit, it's a totally different story. He was a powerful man of God. He had three top apostles: Peter, James, and John. Those were the 3 top ones, and we'd never deny him again after that. And he would be saving many, many souls with the help of God, of course. The help of the Holy Spirit that was within him. All right, so that's the wisdom in the heavenly realm. We need the heavenly realm and we need the earth, both of them. So anyway, I did the calculation, and I came up with the March 10th, and I was a little discouraged because March 10th isn't anything. It's no special day at all. It's But the mistake that I made was that I neglected the fact that this year, 2023, going into 2024, has an extra month at the end of it. So I was 30 days off. So instead of March 9th and 10th, or 8th and 9th, or something around there, it's going to be 1 month, 30 more days after that. It's going to be around April 9th or 10th, which is the first day of Nisan, which is the beginning of the Hebrew year. Now, that's a very significant day. Okay, now what prompted me to do this was the verse that I saw, Hosea 6, verse 2. And it says, "After 2 days will he revive us. In the 3rd day he will raise us up, and we shall live in his sight." Okay, now let's go to 2 Peter 3:8. "But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as 1 day. He says, don't be ignorant of that. Don't forget that. You know it. He told you that, and it's true because he told you that. So that means that after 2 days, now the 2 days could represent 1,000 years, 2,000 years. Okay? Now 2,000 years ago, at the year when we get to the year 2030, 2,000 years before that was just plain 30 AD. And that is the year that he was crucified. And that is the year that he raised. He raised. They destroyed his temple, and in 3 days he rose it up, just like he said. And John 2:19. Jesus answered and said unto them, Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Okay, so you see, first we have the 2 days, and then it says, and will he revive us. It's an us. It's not the I will be raised after. It's not the same thing as destroy the temple and in 3 days I will raise it up. It's not the same exact thing, because this is plural. He will, after 2 days, will he revive us. Now, what was happening in those 2,000 years when Jesus commissioned the Great Commission to go out and preach the gospel unto all men? What was the Great Commission? What was happening? Men were being born again is the key. They were going from a man of sin, which was the old man. We call it the old man, and we keep the old man hidden in the sacrifice, and the old man is nailed to the cross, and the old man, the sins of that old man, which is you, is forgiven. And you walk in the spirit of grace and of the Holy Spirit. You walk in His Spirit, His mercy. As a son of God, you are born again of His seed. Okay? That's the new man that is revived. We are dead to sin, and we revive and raise up and are risen with Christ. That's the last piece there. In the 3rd day, He will raise us up, and we shall live in His sight. So, in other words, after He raises us up, what happens? We get new bodies. We're resurrected. We got new bodies, and we're living with Him, and we're living in Him in His sight. He sees us. We see Him. We are the bride of Christ. A place that you never want to give that up. It's going to be so good that whatever you do, don't walk away from your salvation. Okay? So the 3rd day He will raise us up. Again, plural. Now, that Peter verse changed it a little bit. You almost could put that in the Song of Songs, where it's the bride of Christ in love with the bridegroom, which is Messiah. From Solomon it goes to the Messiah, because it's a song of Solomon, a song of songs, and it has everything to do with marriage. And the marriage that they are really referring to is the marriage of the Lamb and His bride. Okay? To read it as a Song of Song verse in 2 Peter, he says, But, my beloved bride, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day without you is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as that first day we are together. And that's true. Because once we're together, it's one day. There is no more time. And the 1,000 years, to be factual about it, there are still 280 days left after the 7th trumpet. And we're going to take one of those days, one of those 280 days, and it's going to be 1,000 years. But you're still going to have 280 regular hour days, regular time. And so it's sort of like we're going to be without time in one day. Everybody else that didn't make it in the resurrection and didn't have their bodies changed and are without and have no hope and have no faith and have nothing to stand on, they are going to get the 7 vials of wrath. That's a week of vials because it's 7 40s. 280 is divided by 7. It gives you 40 days for each vial. Okay, so now I looked up what the first of Nisan was for the year 2030 and what day it was going to be on. It was going to be on a Friday, and 2 weeks after that, Nisan 14 was going to be of the same year, 2030 AD, was going to be a Friday, and the third day when he's risen is the day of first fruits, and that's going to be a Sunday for that year. Okay, we really care about that year because that's the year that he's going to return. The year that we have this coming spring, 2024, April the 9th or 10th or 8th, I don't even remember. But there's a solar eclipse that happens that day. There's a solar eclipse that happens that day. And that's the day that they're going to sign. That I think that's the day that they're going to sign the peace covenant that Daniel 9:27 talks about, which marks the beginning of the last 7 years. It's very interesting that a solar eclipse happens that day, because this country, United States, is pushing that covenant to be signed, and it's not something that's bad. Because they cry, and heaven is crying because nobody's worthy to open the seal and to even read the words, to look at it and read the words. Nobody's worthy up there, but the Lion of the tribe of Judah is worthy, and everybody's happy that happens. So you see, why are they crying that it can't be sealed? It can't be opened? Why are they thanking God that it is? And that's because their union with Jesus, as they are part of the bride too. Saints up there that are worthy to be up there around the throne of God. I see the 4 living creatures as the people that were denied going into the promised land because they didn't believe, and all of that generation had to wait for 40 years, and they had to die. And then Israel was allowed to go in. But I think that those saints that were around the tabernacle all those years, they are the 4 living creatures. Oh yeah, the joy of having the seal opened. It's a joyous thing. It's not a bad thing. And it's good for us. It's not bad for us. And it's helping us to be cleansed. There's a verse that says 2,300 days the sanctuary will be cleansed. Okay? The sanctuary will be cleansed. So the sanctuary is us, the bride, the people, and they are going to be cleansed the way a woman gets cleansed before she gets married. There's a cleansing ritual that they go through. And this happens to take 2,300 days, which is the entire thing from the beginning that the first seal is open until the end of the 2,300 days, is right at the time of the 7th trumpet, which when that sounds, we are going to see him. He's going to be here with us. So 7 weeks after first fruits, that Sunday, you have to add 1 day, because so far it's only 49 days, and then after 49 days, you add 1 day, and that day is called the Feast of Pentecost. So that day is going to be a Monday. That's the 50th day. Now, what you need to know about Pentecost, because 10 days before Pentecost is a Friday, and that's the day that Jesus went up into the cloud. When 30 A.D., he went up into the cloud on a Friday. All right, and that was 10 days before the Pentecost. That Pentecost was the first baptism in the Holy Spirit. And now, Luke 24, verse 50 through 53. And he led them out as far as to Bethany, 2.5 miles from Mount of Olives. And he lifted up his hands and he blessed them. And it came to pass, while he blessed them, he was parted from them and carried up into heaven. And they worshipped him and returned to Jerusalem with great joy, and were continually in the temple praising and blessing God. Amen. That's the last of Luke. Okay, now, I just want to say one thing about they worshipped him. Because I heard false doctrine say something to the effect that they never worshipped. There's no example. There's no verse that says people worshipped him. He allowed people to worship him. He did. There's one right there, and there's a few more. There's not a lot. You don't find, it's true, there's not a lot of them, but there are enough of them to say that they did worship him. And were happy continually in the temple, praising and blessing God. Amen. Now let's go over to Acts, where this is still Luke talking here. And let's go to Acts 1, 9 through 11. And when he had spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. 10. And while they looked steadfastly towards heaven as he went up, behold, 2 men stood by them in white apparel. They call them men, but we know they're angels. And they're in white apparel. Okay. So angels come unawares as men. 11. Which also said, Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall so come in the manner as you have seen him go up into heaven. So that right there, that verse, is making me think that the way he went up, and even the timing of the day he went up, I think it's going to be very, very simple, the same thing. So he went up, and now it's close to the Mount of Olives. Bethany is close to the Mount of Olives, all right? Very close. Acts 1:12, verse 12. They then returned they unto Jerusalem from the mount called Olive. So after he was taken up, that day, they returned to Jerusalem, which is, and the Mount of Olive is from Jerusalem a Sabbath day's journey. Now, a Sabbath day's journey is 2,000 cubits, according to Exodus 16:29 and Numbers 35:5. Okay? So that's about 1.2 kilometers or 3/4 of a mile. So Jesus was just taken from them that Friday, and they must have walked about 2.5 miles before sunset to go from Bethany to the Mount of Olives. For most healthy adults, the average walking speed is about 3 miles an hour. So they were in Bethany, 2.5 miles from Mount of Olives. They had to walk from the Mount of Olives to Jerusalem, and that had to be a Sabbath journey. And I'm thinking that sunset is about 6 o'clock, so they must have started about 5 o'clock to go towards Jerusalem. First, they had to go where they could walk. It's not a Sabbath walk. In other words, they walked non-Sabbath walk from Bethany to Mount of Olives, and then they walked the Sabbath walk from Mount of Olives to Jerusalem. Okay? So it still makes sense that he's coming back to the Mount of Olives, which is very, very close to Bethany, where he went up. If you want to pick this whole argument apart because of that, I'm sorry, I don't. If he did go up in Bethany, he wanted room. See, the temple that we got now, the temple space that we got now, the Har Bayit, the mount, that space is not enough to fit Ezekiel's temple. So he's going to come back onto the Mount of Olives, and I think that's where he's planning on putting the new temple, because because Ezekiel's temple is going to go there. The temple that they are working on, that they are planning to build, is the one that Antichrist, the man, is going to defile, and Antichrist, the false doctrine beast, is also going to defile. The holy place of that temple is going to be built. It's going to be ecumenical. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what God, it doesn't matter what you believe in God, how God is. It's ecumenical, and it's totally wrong. And the Pope is going to be the ruler. That's his most favorite doctrine. Ecumenical doesn't matter. Everybody believes. However you come up with it, however you believe in him, that's going to be okay. That's what they think. Now, Jesus said, I am the truth, the way, and the life. No man comes to the Father except by me. That's it. So it's either what Jesus said or it's what the Pope says. So you can choose who you want to believe. And you better get it right, because if you can't trust a man. Jesus was more than a man. He was a man, but more than a man. He was a son of God, born the son of God. Nobody else was born the son of God. Everybody is born again the son of God, yes. Anybody that's born again the son of God is through Jesus. You still have to go through Jesus. Let's get a couple of more verses that strengthen some of these things I'm saying. Luke 13:32. This is right after he heard the news that Herod wants to kill him. This is 3 days before he's going to be crucified also. And he said unto them, Go ye and tell that fox, Behold, I cast out devils, and I do cures today and tomorrow. So those are 2 days. And the third day I shall be perfected. So the third day he's perfected in what way? Because he's not perfected until the third day that he rises, and this is going to be the third day the third day from this point is going to be the day that he's crucified. He's perfected because he is doing the will of his Father. That's where your perfection comes. My meat is to do the will of my Father. My meat and his meat is the meat that when you eat of it, you don't get hungry again. Doing his will is eating his meat. Eating that eternal life, never hunger again meat. That's when you get perfected enough to go, to be accepted. You got to do his will. You got to believe in him? Yes. You got to do his will. You got to do it. Yes. The doing it is works. The believing it is, you get perfection because you believe. True. See, that belief that you have, that you believe in him, has to be tested. And that's where the tribulation testing comes in. You have to be tested. Abraham believed in God. It was appointed to him as righteousness. That's where he got his righteousness. As soon as he believed that the number of stars in the skies are going to be his descendants. And he doesn't even have a child yet. But he believed it because God told him. So that's where he got his righteousness. Now, that righteousness that he got had to be tested. And his test was to see if he was going to obey. The task that he had was that he had to kill Isaac, his only son. Because he was promised to have more descendants than the stars in the sky, because he was promised that, he believed that God was going to take care of giving him back to him. He believed that he was still going to be okay. So, in other words, he did it because he believed God. That's why, and God was asking him to do it. And it was just a test. And then he stopped him. And that was good that he stopped him. And a ram came, got caught in the thickets, and that was the sacrifice. Okay, so we just did the third day I shall be perfected. Now 33, the next verse. Nevertheless, I must walk today and tomorrow and the day following it. He had to walk to his cross. For it cannot be that a prophet perish out of Jerusalem. If they're a prophet, they're worthy to die in Jerusalem. Genesis 40:12. Now, the Genesis 40:12 is just, I'm giving you that as an example of, I'll just read it first. And Joseph said unto him, this is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. So you see, 3 days can be branches. They could be 1,000 years. They're not often any more than that, but they could be different. The day could be, I think, as a matter of fact, I think God's creation day, 24,000 years, not 1 year, but it's 24,000 years, because each hour is 1,000 years. And so, in other words, there's a lot more time in the 6-day week than just 24 hours per day. I don't believe that, and I don't have to believe that, because it's not the same thing. God's time is different, and 3 days could be 3 branches. See? Okay. Prophecy is not that easy. It can be dark. Okay, now let's go over this first piece, the first piece of Hosea 6:2. After 2 days will he revive us. I'm saying that the 2,000 years that just passed, he was making people born again, and that's the reviving us. I just want to add to that 1 Corinthians 15:52. He says, in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised, incorruptible, and we shall be changed. You see those 2 days that we're talking about? This is Paul talking. And by the way, when Paul went to sleep, as they say, Paul went into the grave, and he is waiting for the 2,000 years. He's waiting these whole 2,000 years, sleeping in his grave. All right, and it's once you go to sleep, it's like you don't even realize time goes right past. Just like you go to sleep once you fall asleep at night, you don't even realize that time, the time that went by, and when you wake up. And that's the way it's going to be with this too. That's the way it is for people that die. That it's like nothing. So he has this in two pieces here. In a moment, that's one day. In the twinkling of an eye, that's another day. A moment, a twinkling of an eye. He's waiting in the sleep. And then he's waiting for the last trump. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. And that's the day he's looking for. That's what happens in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. Now, I just want to say a little bit about the last trump. Because those people out there that say that we're going to go, and they snap their fingers at any moment. Snap the fingers. Okay? Where did they get that from? We have the last trumpet. Now, we have 7 trumpets in Revelation. There were 7 times the Israelites had to march around Jericho with their trumpets, blowing their trumpets. There were 7 trumpets there. There are 7 in Revelation, and 7 is the 7. If it's the last, my question to them is, if it's the last trumpet, what is the trumpet before it? If it's not the 7 trumpets in Revelation, where are you getting the 7 trumpets for? I mean, the more than one trumpet. Where are you getting the number of how many do you have? And the verse, besides the last trumpet, they say at the sound of the last trump. And how do they describe that? The kingdoms of this world shall become the kingdoms of God. So you're going to deny that? And it says it right here that the sound of the last trumpet is when the dead shall be raised, incorruptible, and we shall be changed. That's when we're going to be changed. So I don't understand. So I just thrown that in here. Another thing that kind of goes with this is the year 2030. What is the 2030 agenda that the UN has come up with? And it's their agenda so that they want to achieve certain goals. And let's just take a look at what some of those goals are. They want to get these goals done by 2030, which is the year I'm guessing that Jesus is going to be coming back. So in other words, they wanted to get there and do all of this nice utopia place for them, and what they think is the way the world should be. And it's, you can't trust them, but they think the world should be, and they have these things that they want to happen. They want sustainable development, seek to end poverty and hunger, realize the human rights of all, achieve gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls, and ensure the lasting protection of the planet and its natural resources. So that's what they want to do. And at the heart of the 2030 agenda are 5 critical dimensions. And people, so that's what it be. There's 5 P's. People, prosperity, planet, partnership, and peace. That's what they want. Now, let's just look at a couple of verses in Daniel. So that's what they're promising us to have, okay? So Daniel 11, 21, 32, and 34. And these are 3 verses in Daniel 11 that use the word flatteries. And this is the 21, verse 21, and in his estate shall stand up a vile person. That's Antichrist. That's representing Antichrist, the man. To whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably, and obtain the kingdom by flattery. And the word there, the Hebrew word there for flattery, has to do with flattery, as they said, slipperiness, making fine promises, and smoothness. All right, so that's how the kingdom of and the kingdom is really the United Nations power itself. So the vile person will come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom with flatteries. And then the next 32 it's and such as do wickedly against the covenant. Now, such as do wickedly against the covenant. In other words, he's going to get people to be wicked against the covenant, and the covenant is the covenant that we make with God, the new covenant, or the old covenant. Those covenants that are made from us to God to us. He's going to get people to do wickedly against it, and he shall corrupt. He's going to corrupt those people with flatteries. Okay, but the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits. Okay, so part of the flattery is that they human rights. They want to give them human rights, end hunger, achieve gender equality, and empowerment of women and girls, and keep making sure that the planet stays sustainable and it's green and all of that stuff. Okay, you all heard it before. Okay, now 34. When they shall fall, they're getting trampled. Don't forget, they're getting trampled now by this evilness that wants to take over, and the people that they are against the most are believers in Jesus, and also Jews that are part of the 444,000, you could say, the remnant that believes. There's a lot of Jews that are going to be saved, and it says 1/3. 1/3 of the Jews are going to be saved. It says that in Zechariah. The way a man of God falls, and when they shall fall, they shall be helped with a little help. But many shall cleave to them with flatteries. There's again, the flatteries are taking them down. It's the people that are trying to do right, trying to maintain the faith, and there's a lot of apostasy. The last days are full of apostasy, or losing the faith, going back into the world, giving up. He shall come in peaceably, and peace is one of the options. Peace is one of the 5 P's. The last P in 5 P's. Ezekiel 13:10. Even because they have seduced my people. Seduced my people. He's doing it with flatteries, remember? He's seducing my people, saying peace, and there is no peace. And the next verse is kind of like very interesting to me, because it's sort of like, I can only think of one example of what it means in these days. And one built up a wall, and lo, others daubed it with untempered mortar, or like that's like plaster. In other words, they're trying to build a wall with plaster of Paris, and it's not going to work. The wall's going to fall down. It's not going to hold anything. It's not going to be a good wall for anything. Now, what do I see? I see there's a very, very important wall that one was building, and that was President Trump. He was building a wall to keep people out from coming in, and the Biden administration has it wide open, and they are allowing millions. A couple of million already have come in, and they're mostly middle-aged, men that can carry guns, and then let them have the guns. And I don't want to get into how bad that is. You should be able to find truth in it if you want to, but it's not easy because they're trying to hide that proof. All right, so that's that. Now there's three more things I thought of. There's an excitement that I have that it's going to be this beginning of Nisan this year, this 2024, is that many rabbis believe that Messiah is going to come back in this Passover. And I don't have the source of who said that or anything, but I clearly remember hearing it on One for Israel podcast. I don't remember which one it was, and I tried to find it again and I couldn't find it. But if it was mentioned on that show, it probably was true. In other words, they think Messiah is going to return, and every Jew believes that the Messiah is going to come. They just don't think it's Jesus is the problem. It's their problem. It's not my problem. But it's my problem because I would like to see them believe in Jesus and get the truth now. Because you could still be a righteous Jew and be saved. Because you're gonna have to, but eventually you're gonna have to. Every knee shall bow is the way it's written. Okay, so the fact that they believe that the Messiah is coming this Passover, that's only 2 weeks after the beginning of the year. So in other words, the thing that's holding them back from signing the agreement right now, there's no way you can give in to those people. But if Messiah is coming back in 2 weeks, why not? It has to be a ceasefire, and you can't believe those people, but there's going to be also, at the same time, they're going to promise the building of the temple. Now, the building of the temple is going to have Muslims, Catholics, and Christians, and Jews. I'm separating Catholic. I'm sorry. You could be a Catholic and be saved. I'm not saying you can't be saved if you're not a Catholic, but you gotta have the right doctrine. Okay, you can't believe in ecumenical. If you want to believe in ecumenical, but as far as the ecumenical goes, there's going to be anybody that the Pope allows in there is going to be in there, besides the Muslim and the Jews and the Christians. There's going to be anybody. Anybody's going to be allowed to go in and worship their God in there. It's going to be for everybody. But it's going to be mostly for the three main religions in the world right now. Mostly. But that's not going to be Ezekiel's temple, like I was saying before. It just doesn't, there's no room for that. But what's going to happen? The daily is going to be taken away. That's number one. And that means that there's not going to be any more praying at the wall. They're going to deny Jews from going to that wall. But they're going to be promised to build their temple that they want to build. They have it all set up. And the Pope has no problem setting up whatever they want to do. However they say, he's going to think it's going to be right. And it is going to be right. They are going to do right, except for the dimensions are not going to be the same. So I don't know how you could say it's the same thing as it's the third temple. It's Ezekiel. How could you say it's Ezekiel's temple if it's not according to the dimensions? And you know Jesus is coming back, and the Mount of Olives is going to be split in half, east to west, and it's going to be split in half, north to south. And what's going to be left? It's going to be it's going to be a plain. It's going to be something level where it's not going to be built by hands. It's going to come down from heaven. And don't tell me he can't do it, because the bride is going to come down from heaven. The New Jerusalem. So if he can do that in the new earth, new heaven and the new earth, the bride's coming down on that. And the earth that we have now, it's going away. It's got 1,000, well, after the 1,000 years and after the judgment, after the white throne judgment. And also, the one more thing that has to be done is the law has to be perfected for the 1,000 years. The law is going to be perfected. Heaven and I get that from the verse, heaven and earth will pass away, but not one jot nor tittle will pass away. It's easier for heaven and earth to pass away than that one jot nor tittle, because he wants his people to go through what he wants, and he wants to see his law perfected by his people. And that's going to be us. And we're not going to have any problem, because the law that he wants to give to you to do is going to be written in your heart, spoken into your heart. You're going to be circumcised of the heart. And you're going to have the Spirit of God living within you as he is now. I mean, I think the law is good, but I don't really pay that much attention to it. I don't wear a tzitzit or different things like that. I don't do a lot of things that the law makes me do, because I'm freed from the law. I'm freed from the law in the sense that I still have a law. I still have the main law. I still have what God has given every man, that we must love the Lord their God with all your heart, strength, soul, mind, and love thy neighbor as yourself. And that includes loving yourself. And that includes little things you got to do when you see, that includes little things like giving. I noticed that you walk right past that man. You walked right past him, and you saw that his need, and you walked right past him, like the Good Samaritan and all that stuff. Okay, so now another reason why I think it's close to the end, and it's very possible it's going to be this year, is because the hardship on Israel with this October 7th massacre and what they're going through with the sirens and the threats and life as we know it is not the same. And there's only so much that they can take before they break. And I think the mercies of God is going to allow them to go ahead and sign the covenant. And in the meantime, make sure that they obey the rules. They obey the rules that they on both sides. And just by obeying some of those rules, because then, they're men, they're liars, they're men, and they don't keep their promises as it is. But I think that they're going to be. See, it's short-lived. The temple is going. The temple that's on the Dome of the Rock, that's got to come off, and it's got to be the new temple. That has to be. So that's going to happen in like 3.5 years. The 3.5 years that the UN beast, the 7-head, 10-horned beast, is in control. The first 3.5 years, I think it's going to be, when it's finished, in the middle of the 3.5 years, that's when Antichrist, the man, blasphemes, and he blasphemes to heaven, and he causes the great tribulation, the greatest hurts that the earth has never seen before and will never see again. And that's what's going to happen. And if the days weren't shortened, no flesh would be saved. None of us would be saved. But for the elect's sake, for our sake, it's going to be shortened, those days. So it's not going to kill us all. It's going to kill 1/4 of the earth. Of course, God is merciful. I think he's going to allow it to happen that day, this spring. But one of the last things I can think of is that the weeping when John the apostle was weeping when they were telling him that nobody was worthy to look at the book or open the seals. He was weeping. Well, why was he weeping? And others around there were weeping as well. Why are they weeping? They're weeping because their souls, redeemed, they're redeemed souls that want to go into they want to come back with Jesus and be with him in the 1,000-year reign. Okay? They want to be there. And that'll be, once that's over, they'll be waiting to go into the New Jerusalem and be part of the bride. All right? So they want very much that the last 7 years begin. All right, that's about it. And so I have to say shalom, everybody. Let's wait until the total eclipse comes. We'll all know the day that I'm predicting that the covenant is going to be signed, and all of the other things that everything I said in when the first seal is opened. That video. All right, take care. Bye.